For this next effect, we'll create a water surface texture by blurring and stretching some fractal noise, applying the CC glass effect, then adding a color gradient over the top of the texture, creating this graphical effect. And we'll complete this texture over the next 3 videos. So here in part 1, let's begin with a new project inside of After Effects. And so now back inside of After Effects with a new untitled project, let's come up to the composition menu. Let's come down and choose New Composition. Let's name this Water. For the width and the height, let's set this to 1500 by 1500. Square pixels, color doesn't matter, then we'll choose OK. So now we have a new composition. We can see this in the project panel. It's also opened in the composition panel as well. So now we're going to create a new blank layer so we can apply an effect to this. And we've done this a few times already. So let's come up to the layer menu. Let's come down to New. Let's choose Solid. Let's name this Fractal. We want this to be 1500 by 1500 as well. You can also click Make Comp Size. With that in place, let's choose OK. And now we have a new solid showing up in the timeline on a new layer. We also have a folder in the project panel with our solid inside of there as well. So with the solid selected, let's come back to the effects and presets. Let's come down to the search field and let's start typing the word fractal. Once we do that, we'll see in the noise and grain group, fractal noise. Let's click on this, drag and drop this, and apply this to the solid in our composition. Now this works a lot like the render clouds or difference clouds in Photoshop. However, inside of After Effects, we have a lot more control over how the fractal noise is generated. So with this selected, we can come over here to the effect controls and see all of these properties here. So for this particular water effect, we're going to start with going into the transform. Let's come down to scale and let's scale up the fractal noise. So as I drag this, we can see that the actual pattern generated gets larger inside of the composition panel. So let's bring this up to about 220, right to about this point here. And this is all I want to do with the fractal noise at the moment. We're going to make more changes later. But what I want to do at this point is, with my solid selected down in the timeline panel, I want to wrap this solid into its own composition so that we can have a nested composition with our fractal noise to work from. So what we're going to do is, with the solid selected in the timeline panel, let's come up to the layer menu and let's come down and choose Pre-Compose. So basically what this is going to do is take that solid and wrap it up inside of a composition. And we can nest compositions inside each other, which work a lot like smart objects in Photoshop or symbols inside of Illustrator. So inside of this Pre-Compose dialog box, let's come in here and name this Fractal for Water. And we're going to come down here and choose the second option, which is to move all of the properties inside of the composition. This means all of the effects that we've applied to the solid will also be contained inside of this composition. And we're doing this because we're going to add our glass effect, and we want the glass effect to be compounded or applied on top of the fractal noise. So with these options set, let's click OK. And now down in the timeline panel, we can see an instance of our composition called Fractal for Water, which we can also see here in the project panel, is inside of our original water composition. And now what I want to do is I want to change the dimensions or the size of the original water composition. Since the Fractal for Water is set to 1500 by 1500, I want to come in here and make the water composition smaller. So that is the composition we're looking at here in the composition panel. Let's come up to the composition menu. Let's come down and choose Composition Settings, and let's come in here and change this. So we're going to change this to 900 for the width and 450 for the height, and then click OK. So that's going to change the size of our water composition. So in order to see what's happening, I'm going to come in here and change my magnification down to 12.5%. This way I can see the entire composition, which is the 900 by 450, and then I can see the composition that's inside of here, which is 1500 by 1500. And now we can see how much larger the Fractal for Water composition is from the water composition that it's placed inside of. And so now that we have our nested compositions in place, next we'll convert the Fractal for Water composition into a 3D layer, then we'll apply our CC glass effect.